Someone asked, what do you think about Adams going to the Pelicans and OKC stacking picks? So I like what OKC is doing because OKC, if you guys don't know, has 17 first-round picks over the next 6 years. They have 17 first-round picks over the next 6 years. Now, here's the thing about having a bunch of picks like this, because Boston had something similar. They didn't have this many picks, but for years, Boston had a bunch of picks because Brooklyn, when Prokhorov was the owner, I hope I don't bore you guys, but I just want to go down this really quick. When Mikhail Prokhorov was the owner of the Brooklyn Nets years ago, he traded for Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett for a whole bunch of future first-round picks. The Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce deal was horrible. Brooklyn was in the lottery, top half of the lottery every year. That's how Boston was able to get Jason Tatum, even though they made the playoffs. They got him at number 3. They was able to get Jaylen Brown at number 3, even though they made the playoffs. And like they were able to get Marcus Smart in the top 10 because even though they were a playoff contending team, and they were able to do all that because they got all these picks from Brooklyn. Now, OKC is going to have something similar because they traded Paul George to the Clippers and got like 5 picks. They traded Chris Paul and flipped him a couple. They traded for Chris Paul and traded away Chris Paul for a couple first-round picks. So a couple of these teams they got these picks from aren't going to be as good as they plan to be, right? Like that's just how the NBA works. You think you're going to be one way, you end up not being as good. So a couple of these first-round picks are going to end up being like high lottery, especially with the way the lottery is now. Remember, if you don't know, the NBA changed their lottery system. So now if you're like at the 8, 9, 10 mark, you have a better chance of getting the number 1 overall pick. Remember, that's how the Pelicans got Zion. The Pelicans had like the 9th best chance to get the number 1 overall pick, and they ended up catapulting all the way to number 1. So some of these picks are going to end up being like a couple of these picks are going to end up being like a top 3, top 5, maybe the number 1 overall pick for OKC. So what OKC has to do, because free agents don't sign to go to OKC, like that's just not how it works. Same with Charlotte, they don't sign to go to Charlotte unless you overly pay. You know, Charlotte overpays for B+ players or B- C+ players in some cases. We just saw those horrible contracts they're under on their books. But so what they have to do is they're going to have to package some of those picks at some point and go out and trade for a superstar who wants to get out of the situation. That's what Boston didn't do. That's where Boston screwed up. See, Boston may have had themselves a title like what Toronto won, or may have been at least been in the finals by now if they would have did what Toronto did, or if they would have packaged some of those picks and go out and get Anthony Davis. See, because if they would have got Anthony Davis, they would have been in the finals. Hell, they might have won the championship. They would have been better than the Miami Heat with those guys and Anthony Davis. But see, they didn't do that. They wanted to keep Jaylen Brown, and they wanted to keep these picks, and they wanted to keep all this stuff. And that's cost that now their window's closed because Brooklyn's in the house. Brooklyn, Kevin Durant's in the house, and they might go out and get James Harden. Miami is no slouch, and now Milwaukee's gotten better. So now the Eastern Conference is tough, right? Like now the Eastern Conference ain't up for grabs like it was for years. And now you have legit finals team, like teams that they're going to compete for the finals, and that's where Boston screwed up. So OKC can't be like Boston. Don't be like Danny Ainge, because let's stay on Boston for a little bit, because not only did they screw that up, right? Like they didn't trade any of those picks to get Anthony Davis when he was on the market. Paul George was on the market at one point. Remember that? Kawhi Leonard obviously was on the market. You could at least bought these guys for, even if it was for 1 year. Take your shot to try to win a championship. That's what Toronto did. They gambled on themselves, and it paid off. It won them a championship. You know, Miami gambled on itself. They went out and got Jimmy Butler. It paid off. It took them to the finals, right? And Boston never did that, and that's why they're stuck, and I don't know if they'll ever make the finals, even though they have really good players. But they screwed up. So what OKC, to answer your question, what OKC has to do, they can't be like Boston. They got to package some of those picks and go, because there's going to be a disgruntled superstar. That's how the NBA works. The superstars get disgruntled. They want to get traded. They want to get out of here. This year it's James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Last year it was Anthony Davis and Jimmy Butler. Every year there's a superstar that wants to get out of his contract, off his team, something like that. So what OKC's going to have to do is package some of those picks and go out and get the next disgruntled superstar. They're going to have to draft well, but that's what Sam Presti does. That's one thing he does well. He drafts really well. They're going to have to continue to draft well and package some of those picks and go out and get the next disgruntled star to try to make some noise in the Western Conference. That's what I think they have to do. I think it was smart to move off Steven Adams because he's what we consider a dinosaur in today's NBA. When you're a big at 7 feet and you can't shoot and you don't have a handle, you're just like a rebound, block shot defender. You're what we call a dinosaur. Hassan Whiteside, Nerlens Noel, Steven Adams. When you're like that, you're a dinosaur. It's hard to play with you in the modern NBA simply because all the modern NBA, the stretch, there's this positionless basketball, that's what they call it. And guys got to be able to shoot. If you can't shoot, you got to be able to handle a little bit. If you can't handle, you got to be able to shoot a little bit. If you can't do either, you're a damn dinosaur. It's time to move on.